CDBE's Columbia Office of Business Opportunities. And we are so excited that you are here today to talk with us about the Columbia Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program. Right now I have our staff on. If staff could just introduce yourself really quickly. We can start with you, Brett, because you're at the top of my screen.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Brett Whiting. I'm the loan officer here in the OBO.
Okay. We can go to Tanya.
Did you say Tanya or LaTanya?
Tanya.
Tanya, okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Tanya Porter-DeBerry with the Office of Business Opportunities.
All right, LaTanya.
Good morning, everyone. My name is LaTanya Germany, Program Compliance Specialist with the Office of Business Opportunities.
All right, Kalina.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kalina Ginyard, Program Coordinator with the City of Columbia's Office of Business Opportunities.
Let's see, Carla.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Carla Eichelberger, and I'm the Administrative Specialist here at the Office of Business Opportunities.
Thank you so much. Did I miss anyone on staff?
Hey, Melissa.
Hi, this is Melissa Lindler. I'm the Director for the Office of Business Opportunities. I just want to thank everyone for being here and thank the staff for getting this together. We're excited that you are interested in this program, but we will be even more excited if you participate as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melissa. So I'm going to just, we've had our staff introduce themselves. Since we're going to talk about our CDBE program, our compliance staff is listed on here, LaTanya and Kalina. So if you have any questions about the approval process, these are the individuals that will be able to assist you with making sure that you get registered with our Columbia Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program. In our office, we also have our other compliance programs. They include our local business enterprise preference policy, as well as our mentor protege program and our Columbia Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, which will be the focus of our discussion today. Special thanks on the call. We have our Columbia Water team. Also, our Department of Procurement and Contracts will provide a brief overview of their involvement with the process, as well as our eBid system. With the changes that we've made to our program, we've also had a lot of involvement from our city attorney's office, as well as our mayor, city council, our city manager, and our assistant city manager, Gentry, as well as our assistant city manager, Clint Sheely. Please make sure you stay on mute during the call until we get to the question portion, and you can add those in the chat. I think Kalina's already put that you can add those questions in the chat, and we will answer your questions throughout the presentation today. Also, this will be recorded, so you will be able to view it later as long as you registered. If you did not register, if you can please give us your email in the chat, and we will make sure that you receive a recording of the presentation today. So first, I want to just start off by the purpose of the program. And it is to ensure that CDBEs have the equitable opportunity to compete for subcontracts. This program was adopted by our City Council in December of 2016 and then amended in March of 2021. And it is a living document, so as we continue to administer the program, we will acknowledge if changes need to be made and make those changes accordingly. So the first question you may ask, hopefully a lot of you are already CDBEs, but if you are not, a CDBE is a certified socially and or economically disadvantaged business enterprise that has an office located within the Columbia, Orangeburg, Newberry combined statistical area at a minimum of 1 year. So that means you must be located within these counties, and I'll provide a map listing all those counties in just a moment. Also, you must complete the CDBE application, and that is available on our website. And we'll put that in the chat so that you can just click on that application. It's a fillable document, so it's very easy to complete. And we typically process that application within 3 business days once it's completed. So it's very important that you provide all aspects of that application so that we can make sure we can get it completed and approved as quickly as possible. So if you are a Columbia disadvantaged business enterprise, that means that you have a certification. And what we've provided here is just a list of certifications that we accept in our office. It's not all inclusive. So if you are aware of certifications, you can contact our office and we can discuss if we can accept those certifications. But the ones that we primarily see are from SCDOT, SBA, the SMBCC, also WeBank, and NMSDC as well. And then we have some other certifications from SBA that we accept. But like I said, if there's another certification that we're not aware of, we can definitely look at that. And as long as it's an accredited certification, we can accept that. So the counties that are within the CDBE area include Saluda, Kershaw, Calhoun, Orangeburg, Fairfield, Richland, Lexington, and Newberry. Again, you must be located in those locations at least 1 year, and you just have to have an office there. So if for anyone that's also an LBE, our LBE requires that you be headquartered in those one of those counties, but for CDBE, you just have to have an office location within those 8 counties. And then you must also be socially and economically disadvantaged. So here's a definition of socially disadvantaged and economically disadvantaged. And if you have those certifications, then that means you do meet that criteria. So our project goals. For a project to be designated as a CDBE, the project estimated cost must be at least $200,000 for us to put a goal in there. And then the goal is based on the relative availability of subcontractors. And I will go over what that methodology looks like for us to determine relative availability. Our CDBE program does not apply to our mentor protege projects, and CDBE goals can only be met utilizing CDBEs and DBE subcontractors. So one of the questions that we often get is, can a DBE prime contractor be counted towards the CDBE goal? And the answer is no. The intent of the program is to encourage the utilization of our DBE and CDBE subcontractors. So even a DBE prime contractor must still subcontract to the minimum goals set for CDBE participation. So I want to take some time right now. If anyone has any questions on how to become a CDBE before we get into the actual guidelines associated with our CDBE program. So does anyone have any questions on becoming a CDBE? You can unmute or you can put your question in the chat. Hopefully everyone's awake. Okay, I would say some of the common questions we may get is, so primarily our CDBE projects are water, sewer. We've had some with our other departments, but someone may say, well, I don't do water or sewer. Should I still apply to be a CDBE? And the answer is yes, for a couple of reasons. Sometimes these water and sewer projects include subcontracting areas that might not be typical of water and sewer. So you want to make sure that you're on the list for that. Additionally, we may look at our CDBE list to help our different departments identify DBE contractors in various different areas. So I would encourage anyone, while our priority for this program is water and sewer, there may be opportunities for you to participate in other projects. And so it's important to at least get your name on the list.
Aisha, we got a question in the chat. One question just came from Merlene, and she wanted to know, does CDBE work with veterans? And we do. I think you have to be certified as a service disabled veteran-owned business in order to receive a CDBE, and also you have to be located in the 8 counties TSA. So yes, we do work with veterans. So you just have to make sure that you have to be certified, not stating that you were a veteran, but you have to be certified as a veteran-owned or service disabled veteran-owned business.
Do you have anything else, Kalina?
That is all for right now.
Okay. As I said, if you have any questions as we continue with the presentation, please feel free to put those in the chat. So we did undergo several changes this year with our CDBE program, but there are a lot of things they did not.
Aisha, I'm not seeing the presentation. Can everyone else see the presentation? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. So some of the things that have not changed. The city will continue to ensure that CDBEs have equitable opportunities to compete for contracts and subcontracts. Also, the definition of our
Sorry, it keeps going in and out for some reason. Hopefully it won't happen again, but I'm sorry, keep going.
Okay. Also, our certified DBEs located within the 8-county CSA for 1 year may be registered as the CDBE. So that's another, there's no change there as well. And then, as I mentioned, the $200,000 projects are where we will determine if we need to assign a goal. And then the role of our Good Faith Efforts Committee has not changed as well. We will go over in detail exactly what that Good Faith Efforts Committee entails and what they're responsible for. Some other things that have not changed, we will continue to ensure equitable opportunities. So in doing that, we make sure that we arrange bid solicitations and times for the submission of bids and bid specifications to ensure equitable participation. We'll also break down larger contracts into smaller contracts when possible to include the participation of our smaller businesses. We want to make sure that they have an opportunity to participate in our procurement. So when possible, we'll try to break down those projects in the smaller opportunities. We'll also provide specifications in a timely manner so we can make sure that respondents are able to respond to solicitations and they have adequate time to do so. And then we'll also provide technical assistance to our CDBE. So that's very important for our office. It's one of our main focuses is to make sure that we advocate for our small businesses. So if there is a business on the call that doesn't know where to start, or maybe they're thinking about even getting into the water and sewer industry and they want some guidance, we'd be happy to sit down and talk to you about how to move forward in that, what certifications you may need to get, what type of training opportunities are available. So just remember that we are a resource for all of our businesses. And then we'll hold seminars and workshops such as these to acquaint the business community with the requirements and the scope of city procurement activities. We always encourage our businesses, even if they're not specifically planning to bid on a project, to please attend any of the pre-bids or pre-solicitation meetings so that they are aware of the process to respond to a procurement opportunity. Our non-discrimination contracting policy, I won't read this entire thing, but the gist of it is we want to ensure that there is no discrimination, whether it be internally with employees and applicants for employment, or whether it be with our procurement opportunities. And we want to make sure that the contractors incorporate the provisions of the non-discrimination contracting policy in all subcontracts for service work. So the city will ensure that we don't discriminate, but we also, that trickles down to our contractors as well. We want to ensure that there is no discrimination in how they are involved in our procurements and in our contracts. So meeting the goal, one of the main things is the direct outreach. So our office also makes sure that we reach out to our CDBEs when opportunities come up, but we expect our prime contractors to do the same. So we have a CDBE list that can be found on our website to identify all of those businesses that have already been designated as CDBEs, and this list is updated on a regular basis. So if there's someone on the call right now that is not a CDBE, you can still be added to that list. You just have to submit your application with that one pager and provide your supporting documentation so that you can be added to that list. And then we provide that list to our prime contractors so they can utilize that to meet the requirements of our CDBE program. We have started a tiered approach to meeting the goal. Tier 1 is that you must utilize a CDBE within the Columbia, Orangeburg, and Newberry CSA. Again, you can use our directory. It's found on our website. We can also email that to you. Tier 2 is the utilization of certified DBEs within the Columbia, Orangeburg CSA. So as I stated before, we use certifications from DOT and SMBCC, as well as the other certifying agencies So if they have not gone through the process of becoming a CDBE, but they are certified, that is where tier 2 comes. So, and then after that is tier 3, and that's the utilization of a certified DBE within the state of South Carolina. So the intent is for you to first look at our CDBEs, then go to tier 2 for DBEs that are located within the 8 counties. Maybe they just haven't gone through the application process. And then tier 3 is DBEs that are within the state of South Carolina in any county, not just limited to our 8. So that is what the tiered approach, and that is something new for the program. So if anyone has any questions about that, we'd be happy to answer. But we're just trying to expand the opportunities for our DBEs through this tiered approach, with the understanding that some projects are specialized. So we might not have a DBE located within the 8-county region that can perform those functions. So we've expanded that net so that prime contractors can look at other DBEs that may be outside of the 8-county region. Next, in meeting the goal, in an effort to establish relationships with prospective offers and meet the requirements, they should attend all pre-bids and pre-solicitations, as well as outreach events. Our office has held outreach events as an opportunity for those subcontractors to meet with the larger prime contractors that are planning to bid on a project. So it's very important that when an outreach event is announced, that a CDBE attends those meetings. It's a great networking opportunity, not just to meet the requirements of our program, but it's a great networking opportunity for you to potentially establish a relationship with a prime contractor for other opportunities that exist. I think most prime contractors would say they can't do everything themselves. They do depend on their subcontractors. So we just want to help make that networking and that connection possible through our outreach events. Offers are also encouraged to begin the solicitation to CDBE firms immediately following the pre-bid and pre-solicitation. So for anyone that's not familiar with maybe some of the procurement language, when we use the word offers, that means someone who is planning to submit a bid or respond to a solicitation. Those are who we're talking about, the offers. It's the prime contract, whoever that's going to be, our prime consultant is the offerer in this situation. And then the CDBE goal can only be met by using CDBE DBE contractors. And I think we've stressed that because it's a question we often get. The intent is for the prime contractors to look for opportunities to help those smaller companies to be included in the procurement process. So as I stated before, a DBE prime contractor is still required, even a CDBE prime contractor is still required to subcontract to CDBEs and DBEs if a project is designated as a CDBE project. Again, offer is a CDBE, DBE does not count towards the DBE goal requirement placed on a project. OBO will use the methodology below in calculating subcontracting goals. It is a process, so we don't just arbitrarily come up with these goals. There is an actual calculation. I'm sure Latanya and Kalina will stress this. It is a process. It's a very strenuous process that we don't take lightly. So what we do is we have to determine who is ready, willing, and able, that's a DBE in our market area, utilizing, like I said, our EBID, SCDOT, SMBCC. We use all these databases to determine who is ready, willing, and able as a DBE. And we'll go over the EBID process shortly. So if anyone is not registered, we'll make sure that you have that information. And then we'll look at how many ready, willing, and able firms in the market area from the census data. And then we'll take the number of DBE firms divided by the number of all firms, and that will give us a base figure for relative availability. And then I think another important thing is the weight. So the weight is determined by the proportion of dollars spent within each industry. So what happens when you take all that calculation into account, the percentage is more heavily influenced by the availability in the industries where more dollars are spent. So that is how the calculation is determined. We look at available DBEs, we look at all of the available contractors, and then there's a weight assigned based on how much of the project dollars will be spent in that specific subcontracting area. The final goal may require adjustments to take into account previous projects and also information from our disparity study, which currently we have a disparity study underway, which we're very excited about to determine if any changes need to be made with how we implement the different programs and services that we provide at the city, and also any other data affecting the CDBE participation. So we really want to try to be mindful of maybe past projects and what we saw. Like I said, if there's a specialized project, we want to take that into account when determining the goal. So it really is a process before we establish a goal on a project. Also, the cost of equipment purchased or leased by CDBE from a prime contractor does not count for DBE credit. We want to make sure that our CDBEs and DBEs are not being a pass-through. We really want these contractors to be performing work to increase the capacity that they have within whatever field they're working in. So that's an important thing to note. Do we have any questions on the updates to the CDBE program guidelines? I'm gonna take a minute and see if I can get that mark over there.
Aisha, we had maybe just one question in the chat, but it wasn't regarding the CDBE, it was regarding the Mentor Protege program. But if there's anyone that is interested in the Mentor Protege program, we're not going to be talking about that today, but if you have any questions or you'd like to learn more about the Mentor Protege program, I will provide the link in the chat, but you can also contact our office at 803-545-3950 if you have any questions regarding the Mentor Protege program. And we have a couple people that have put their email addresses in the chat because they would like to receive a copy of the presentation later. Oh, and we just got one question. Do you assist with helping DBE firms with hiring employees?
So not specifically, but if you have, we would love to talk to you, and if you could tell us what areas you're interested in, we may have someone in our network that we can connect you with. We have a lot of community partners that we work with, and we may be able to assist you with that. If you can give us some more information about what type of business you have, you never know what type of connection we can make, so we'd be happy to talk about that.
And there was another question, had a question regarding home healthcare businesses. Aisha, if you could clarify that one for us, please.
What was the question?
If home healthcare businesses could be considered as a CDBE.
You could. Now, for these particular projects, like we said, the bulk of them are Columbia Water. I think we may have some within Parks and Rec. I would encourage you to go ahead and get that. It's an easy process. And like I said, we will use that list for other opportunities. Sometimes we might have a private firm contact us and ask us, do you have a CDBE in this particular area? And we could share with them our directory. So I would be happy to discuss that with you as well.
And we have some people that provided their emails and contact numbers to contact them regarding, I'm going to guess this is the presentation, most of them, but we do have one. And thank you, Jasmine and Mazik, for providing your information on your dump trunking company. And we'll be reaching out to you soon.
And that's great. And Jasmine, thank you for doing that, Jasmine, because I do want to make a comment. So typically for our workshops, we are in person. Obviously, we are not right now due to COVID. We want to make sure everyone stays safe. But I think it's a great idea to add your email in the chat and possibly make a connection. There may be a opportunity for some of you to work together. And I love that idea. So please feel free to put your information in the chat and hopefully make a connection. It's great. Anything else going on? Okay. All right. So we're going to go on to our letter of commitment.
Ms. Kehoe has a question.
Oh, okay.
Aisha, excuse me. Ms. Kehoe has a question. Kalina, can you read that question to Aisha?
Yes, I can go back to that question. I'm sorry. Okay, from Ms. Kehoe, it says, I am currently working with another water sewer department in the Midlands, doing behavioral interviewing techniques and helping them hire a high-level job position. How, as a DBE, can I help City of Columbia clients on hiring, interviewing, recruitment process? Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. Yeah, we can definitely make that connection. That's great that you are able to assist with hiring. So we can definitely, as we've seen, someone is interested in what opportunities may be available to assist with hiring. We know that's a major issue right now, is finding good employees. So we will make that connection with you and any company that may be interested in assisting or receiving your assistance.
And we just got another question. And Frederick Marshall, thank you for putting that information in there. That you're looking for hydro seeding erosion control work. We will reach out to you. And I think you already are on our list, but we'll reach out to you. From Merlene Ennis, how much of an effort is placed on outreach of CDBE in rural areas of the counties?
Yeah, so that is very important to us. And what we have talked about doing is maybe something similar to like a traveling tour, so that we can go out to all of our 8 counties and maybe go to their Chamber of Commerce or wherever those businesses network, whether there's a contractors association in the 8-county region. We would like to come and speak to those chambers or those contracting associations. Also, when possible, our office also goes to trade shows as well, to look at opportunities for us to network and that are interested in doing the type of work that we procure. If there are any other suggestions, we would love to receive those. If there are any other associations or networking opportunities in the rural areas, we'd love to know those so we can come out. Of course, that's kind of stopped lately due to COVID, but we hope to resume that soon, as soon as we can go back out. But yeah, definitely share any information. I see the Central Midlands Council of Government. Yeah, exactly. So that's a great opportunity for us to network with them and see what opportunities they have to do something like a traveling tour to some of the rural areas, so that they can become aware of the opportunities that exist. Because exactly, we definitely want to make sure that they know what we have going on here at the city and what opportunities exist.
And thanks to everybody who's putting their email information in the chat. And just to remind you that if you registered for today's webinar, we will send you a copy of today's presentation along with the survey and a link to our YouTube channel, because it's recorded now on YouTube. But if you did not register, please put your email information in our chat, and we will send that information to you today.
Thank you, Kalina. Great questions, everyone. Next, I want to just talk a little bit more about our good faith efforts. So the contractor should exercise all necessary and reasonable steps to ensure the CDBEs perform services or provide materials on contracts an amount that meets or exceeds the CDBE contract goal. And that is so important, and I'm going to explain why. So you will be required to submit a letter of CDBE commitment. I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like. And if you're going to be below 50% of the goal, you must submit all of your GFE documentation. And I'm going to go over that list. So if you are above 50% or you meet the goal, you do not have to submit the GFE documentation. So it's very important. It's ideal that our prime contractors meet the goal. Like I said, we go through a very specific calculation process to determine that goal and make sure it's reasonable. So the intent is that everyone at least be at 50%, but honestly, the goal is set to where it should be met. Exactly. Make sure I share my screen again.
Aisha, while you're doing that, I just want to reiterate something that you just said and about the goal being met. If Prime continuously bids on a CDBE project and they do not meet the goal, then we will look into that. We will audit your good faith efforts to make sure, that you are doing what you're supposed to do in order, to make every opportunity possible for you to meet that goal. So even though you do not have to provide your good faith effort documentation if you meet at least 50%, if you continuously just meet 50%, then we will audit you. And I want to say the threshold is 3. So if you bid on 3 projects within a calendar year and you have not met the goal, then we will audit your good faith effort documentation. So that's why it's very, very important for you to maintain that documentation, even though it's not required at the time of submittal for your CSP. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. And yes, again, as we've gone over the tiered approach, we will look at that in your GFE documentation to make sure that you go into those 3 different tiers in determining how much of the goal that you meet. Here is a list of all the items included in the good faith efforts checklist. And as we've reiterated again and again, if the prime contractor meets the goal at least 50%, then they are not required to submit this information. But the good faith efforts include the GFE checklist cover sheet, the attendance at the meeting and outreach events, also broad-based advertisement to make sure that you advertise that these opportunities were available, and then written or digital notice to the CDBE subcontractors. So as I stated, we'll give you the list of CDBEs, and then you need to send, most of the time these days, everyone sends an email. It used to be most of those were actually written letters or typed letters that were sent via mail, but an email is accepted. Also following up with the initial solicitation. So once you make the subcontractors aware of these opportunities, did you follow up to see if they were interested? Were you responding to any questions they had? So we really want to see that you made an effort to reach out to these subcontractors. And then request for assistance. We have a list of agencies that can help you with recruitment or finding opportunities for DBEs. And did you reach out to them? And we'll want to see proof of that. And then there's the participation log that's required that you submit during the CSP period, which we'll go over. And then utilizing the certified DBEs contractor. So that is the intent of the whole process, is that you are actually planning to utilize these DBE contractors. That it's not enough to just say we reached out, I've done enough. You actually need to utilize those contractors as well. So the proms have to maintain and keep GFE documentation for a minimum of 3 years on each CDBE contract. And like I said before, the prompts can include digital or print advertisement and meeting the CDBE goal. In the past, it was just print. So we've added that digital is allowed now. And then the city reserves the right to audit GFE paperwork at any time. As Melissa mentioned, offerers that repeatedly fail to meet the CDBE utilization goal placed on a project will be audited. So it's very important that you maintain that documentation. And then the GFE logs are found in the appendices of the guidelines. And we'll make sure that everyone has a copy of that link. I also included in the email after our webinar today, so you can just click on that and have access to the guidelines. And then the GFE committee will be reviewing all the GFE documentation for offerers who do not meet the goal at 50% or more. So again, we stress that you don't have to go through this process if you at least meet the goal at 50%. It would be wonderful if you can exceed the goal. We think that there are other opportunities based on our calculation. That's the minimum goal, but it would be wonderful if someone would meet or exceed the goal. I think that's great. That's great for our city and great for our projects when we make sure that we're inclusive. The checklist must accompany the GFE documentation. It's on Appendix C of the guidelines. The GFE committee review. So GFE stands for Good Faith Efforts, and this is the committee that will review the documentation that is submitted for those that fail to meet at least 50% of the CDBE goal. So for example, the goal was 20% and someone responded they were only to do 8%. They would have to submit the GFE documentation. And then we will have to determine, did you actually meet the good faith efforts before you can move forward in the procurement process. So the committee consists of representatives from our Office of Business Opportunities, and the relevant city department. So if it's a Columbia Water project, we'd have a Columbia Water representative. If it's a Parks and Recreation project, we would have someone from that department. So that's what we mean by relevant city departments. And what that committee will do is review the information that is submitted to make sure that you went through the process of making those CDBE contractors or subcontracting opportunities available to a broad base of willing and available CDBEs, DBEs, and other certified minority business enterprise contractors based on the information outlined in the guidelines. So that is the purpose of that GFE committee, to make sure that you did what is required of the program. There is a General Administrative Review Committee known as the ARC, and then all appeals shall be escalated to the administrator for further consideration. So if there is some type of discrepancy or disagreement on the result of the GFE committee, then you may request an administrative review, and that must be submitted to our purchasing agent within 3 business days after you're deemed non-compliant. So non-compliant means that the GFE committee determined that you did not go through the proper process, you did not meet the requirements of the good faith efforts, and so you are deemed non-compliant and cannot move forward with the procurement process. And then the ARC shall review the appeal within 5 business days. So any appeal denied by the ARC shall result in the agreed offer being deemed as non-responsive and cannot move forward in the process. The audit of the good faith efforts, Melissa talked about this. Again, we reserve the right to audit that paperwork at any time that we deem necessary. If you repeatedly fail to meet or exceed the specified CDBE goal, you will be audited, and audited findings may result in the suspension of offers participation in future CDBE projects. Again, after you have not met the goal 3 times, and then we put in the fiscal year of July 1st through June 30th, then we'll review that, or we will perform an audit on your GFE paperwork. Does anyone have any questions about the good faith efforts? I know that was a lot of information. Okay, great. So that means it's very, very clear. All right, so at this point, I would like to turn it over to our wonderful procurement and contracts team to go over the invitation for bid steps. And I believe that is Gary Port.
Thank you, Aisha. What I want to do is go over the procurement process, just to kind of give you all a broad overview. And I'll be available to answer any questions if anyone has any questions as well. These first 2 slides are basically just it's kind of a one slide shows all the steps in the procurement process. But if we can move to slide 32, actually we'll start with step 1 on slide 32, and then it'll go through each step, and I'll go through and tell you what all is involved. Step 1, as you can see here, the project is advertised for bid. We advertise it in the eBid system, put out for everyone to view. Everyone gets, again, if you're registered with eBid, and we're going to have someone talk a little bit more about that in the coming slides for us. So she's going to tell you about how to get registered. But if you register with eBid, you will be notified that a solicitation has been released that you may be interested in based on how you register with eBid. So you should get notice of that. Again, we also advertise in the state newspaper and in the South Carolina Business SCIBO. I'm trying to think what the acronym stands for, but it's a publication basically lists solicitations throughout South Carolina Business Opportunities, because you all, Aisha, the Office of Business Opportunities, for some reason or another, I got that confused in my mind, but it's South Carolina Business Opportunities. I think it's SCIBO, SCBO. This is an electronic publication that many state and municipal agencies advertise their solicitations in. So It's South Carolina Business Opportunities. That was correct. Somebody just put it in the chat, so I appreciate it. Thank you. Again, I had an OBO in my mind. That's what was causing the block in my mind. But again, we advertised the solicitation. The procurement process commences with that advertisement. The invitation for bid, again, as you see there, is released for all interested bidders. And we also will have a pre-bid, and I say we'll have a pre-bid. Pretty much everything we do, we have a pre-bid meeting, and that's noticed as well in the solicitation, where you'll be noticed of the date and the time for the pre-bid meeting. Since COVID, we've been doing those pre-bid meetings by conference call. So we will, right now for the near future, we will continue to do that, which really makes it easier for people to attend because you don't have to physically go to a location. You can actually just call into a number that's been provided to you in the solicitation with an access code that's also provided and participate in the pre-bid meeting that way. The pre-bid meetings generally, and I'll say generally because most every time they are non-mandatory. However, we do highly recommend that you attend the pre-bid meeting because that's where we have the project manager or the end user for the city, basically the person from the department who's responsible, who's actually requiring that purchase to be made for goods or services or whatever it is. They're there to talk about the project and to also answer any questions that might come up if something's not clear in our advertisement, in the specifications of the drawings, if it's a construction project, which is what I handle, pretty much construction projects. So if something's not clear, we'll have someone there to answer that. We also encourage you to submit any questions that you have to our eBid system. There's a question portal, and we ask that everybody that has a question, please submit those questions to the portal, and then we'll get an answer back out to you in writing in a short time. After that pre-bid meeting, generally in concurrence with that, the Office of Business Opportunities will also host an outreach event. It's a separate event from procurement and contracts pre-bid meeting, but again, they will host that. And I think, I don't want to step on any toes, but I think that outreach event is basically, it's kind of a networking session. So the prime bidders who are attending the pre-bid meeting and also any subcontractors who might be attending, and hopefully a lot of DBEs, CDBEs, and subcontractors of those categories will be involved as well. And it gives them an opportunity, again, to do some networking and provide their information to one another, from the primes to the subcontractors. All right, if you go to the next slide, we'll talk about step 2, I think. Step 2, and this is very important for what we're talking about today in these CDBE projects. Step 2 is a deadline. These solicitations that we're putting out that are CDBE projects, Columbia Disadvantaged Business Enterprise projects, actually will have 2 deadlines. One is the compliance deadline of the submittal. We call it the CSP. That is the compliance submittal portion of the project, whereby you'll submit that form that Aisha spoke of earlier, the CSP submittal form, indicating what % of the CDBE goal you intend to meet when you submit your bid. And this CDBE participation deadline is we have it aligned now, is generally 2 weeks before the bid opening. So you will do all your legwork and determine what portion of the goal you intend to meet. You will then submit that CSP commitment letter, which is an affidavit. It has to be notarized, which makes it a sworn statement saying that you plan to meet the goal. And again, using that example Aisha gave earlier, just say, well, I don't know what percentage she had, but I've got 17% in my mind. Let's just say the project has been designated as a 17% CDBE goal. You will then indicate on that CSP submittal or committal letter that you will either agree that you plan to meet the goal at 17%, and then it goes a step further and asks, if you say you're going to meet the goal at 17%, it asks what percentage do you intend to meet. So you can, just because the goal is 17%, that doesn't mean that you can't exceed that. You can say, I plan to meet 20%. I have 20% CDBE participation or DBE participation on this project. Or the second one is you plan to meet at least 50% of the goal. So in that case of a 17% CDBE goal, 50% of it would be 8.5%. So you'll indicate that you plan to meet at least 8.5% of the goal. And again, it has a separate question whereby it asks in that case, what percentage of the CDBE goal do you intend to meet? Again, you can, just because the goal, 50% of the goal is 8.5%, that doesn't mean you can stop there. It doesn't mean you have to stop there. Let me say that. You can certainly indicate that you plan to meet 10% maybe, or whatever you have deemed that you feel like is a comfortable goal for you when you submit your bid. And the third selection is whereby you indicate that you plan to meet less than 50% of that CDBE goal. In this case, again, 17% was the CDBE goal. If you plan to meet less than 50% of that, i.e., if you plan to meet 8.49999% or less CDBE, DBE participation, you would select that one. And that's the one, this is where the line is drawn. If you indicate that in your bid, you plan to meet less than 50% of the CDBE prescribed goal, you will then have to submit with your CSP letter of commitment your good faith efforts, all your good faith efforts documentation that Aisha was talking about earlier. So again, you're not required to submit your good faith efforts if you're going to meet the goal, which is 17% in this case. You don't even have to do good faith efforts if you plan to meet the goal. If you plan to meet 50% of the goal, between 50% and the goal itself, you do have to do good faith efforts and keep them on file for a period of 3 years, but you do not have to submit those with your CSP commitment letter. If you plan to meet less than the CDBE goal, again in this case, which I said was 17%, and you're going to meet 8.499% or less, you have to submit with your CSP commitment letter your good faith efforts as well. Okay, anybody have any questions about that? I'll be happy to answer those either now or I'll ask the questions again at the end. And I see we've got some questions in chat. I'm talking and I can't do but one thing at a time. So Kalina, if you'll look at those, if any of those are addressed to me, if you just call.
We don't have any questions for you right now, Gary. Not in the chat.
Thank you, ma'am.
Gary,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you. I just wanted to say one thing. Can you go back to that previous slide? Step 2. The CSP participation log is now part of the good faith effort documentation. So again, as Gary stated, if you are going to be below 50% of that hypothetical 17% goal, you would need to submit your good faith effort documentation, which would include your CDBE participation log. Just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. I'm glad you pointed that out because that is a change from what it was before. I think before everyone had to submit the CSP, the contractor participation log. Now, as Melissa just pointed out, you only have to submit that CSP participation log if you're going to meet less than 50% of the goal. Again, as Melissa said, it's a part of the good faith effort. So inevitably, you have to do the participation log even if you're going to meet 50% of the goal, but you don't have to submit that with your CSP letter. But if you're going to meet less than 50% of the goal, then that CSP participation log has to be submitted along with your good faith efforts. It is, as Melissa said, a part of the good faith efforts now. Thank you, Melissa, for that. Next slide, please. And step 3, once that CSP commitment period, committal period is passed, we being procurement and contracts, they'll be submitted to us, and we haven't really nailed down. We're getting very close to nailing down how those will be submitted, but that will be indicated in the solicitation as to whether they can be sent to us or sent through eBid or how that will be submitted. But as soon as we get that, like I said, we'll include that in the solicitation as well. When we receive your CSP committal letter, we will then forward that along with any good faith effort documentation that's submitted for an offer who's indicating they're going to meet less than 50% of the CDBE goal. We'll forward all that over to the Office of Business Opportunities. They will then take a look at it, and again, in that case, whether good faith efforts have been submitted, they will convene the Good Faith Efforts Committee, whereby they will review your submission, and then they will make a determination as to whether the offer is compliant in their submission or whether they're non-compliant. And they will then notify procurement and contracts of the offerers who are compliant and those who are not compliant. Procurement and contracts will then in turn notify the bidders as to who's compliant. We won't put a list out. We'll notify the offerers individually. you've been deemed compliant, please continue with submitting a bid to us on this project on the bid deadline, which generally is 2 weeks after the CSP submittal letter portion. And again, for those who've been found to be non-compliant, we will also indicate to them that they've been found to be non-compliant and that a bid will not be accepted from them on the bid opening date. So, and there will be a period, I don't know if it's in here, but there'll be a period also if someone's deemed non-compliant. I think there's an appeal, and Melissa, you correct me on this, or Aisha, I believe there's an appeal period that's allowed for this as well. If someone has an issue with being held non-compliant, then they'll have to notify us, and we will then notify OBO, and that'll be handled in that manner.
That is correct, Gary. The ARC committee, well, that's after the bids come in from your invitation to bid. Is that what you're referring to?
Right.
Yeah. So there is a way to appeal that. Yes, sir. And I think you're going to talk about that. Thank you.
Yeah, I did. I went over that in my slides, but I'll be happy to reiterate that.
Thank you, Aisha. Again, I guess I wasn't paying attention when you went over that. So I was trying to multitask and do other things, but thank you, ma'am. All right, next slide then, for step 4. Step 4 is when the actual bid opening occurs. This is again for those who've been deemed compliant, and we've notified them of that. They will then submit their bids. When the bid opening comes, they have to submit, again, the business information records. This is a listing of the things that are required when you submit your bid. And again, this is also included in the solicitation. It tells you what is required to submit a bid for this project. Again, the bid has to be signed. It has to have the name of the bidder, their contact information, the person who is submitting the bid, and make sure that their person in authority can do that. The bid form, which is the line item listing of all the parcels of the work itself with the quantities included and in their prices, the bid bond, the prime business information statement, the business information record for subcontractors, subconsultants, and subcontractors. That's the form I'm talking about, whereby when one submits a bid, and let's just say that during the CSP submittal portion, they indicated they were going to meet that 17% CDBE goal. When the bid is submitted, that BIR form, or Business Information Records form, we call it BIR for short, it's an acronym, it needs to show that they've got at least 17% of CDBEs and or DBEs for this project. And I think I did hear Aisha say earlier that, because this question has come up a number of times in the past, if the prime bidder or the prime contractor, the entity who is submitting the bid, if that prime contractor is themselves a DBE and or a CDBE, that does not count towards that CDBE goal. In other words, if the prime contractor is a DBE or a CDBE, and you say, well, we're meeting 100% because no, that doesn't count. It has to be for your subcontractors. It have to be DBEs and or CDBEs. And that percentage, as I said, if it's 17%, would need to be indicated on that business information records form that you submit with your bids. That will then be sent back to OBO for them to check and make sure that you didn't just write down an entity and saying that they're a CDBE or they're a DBE. That will need to be confirmed that the entity you submitted as a subcontractor for 10% of the project or 17% or whatever it is in actuality is actually a DBE and or a CDBE. So if you're found not to have that, if you said you were going to meet the goal at 17%, and then when you submit your bid and you've got 15%, then you would be held to be non-responsive in that case because you did not do what you said what we asked you to do. You didn't meet the goal. And the other things that are needed to be included would be your non-collusion affidavit, your local business enterprise qualification statement. That's basically we include that in our bids as a sample for those who might be a local business enterprise. Again, Aisha talked a little bit about that earlier from the 8-county combined statistical area. She showed one of those 8 counties. If you're in those 8 counties and you have an office, a little different from a CDBE, whereby you just have to have an office in your headquarters, I believe has to be for an LBE, has to be within that 8-county CSA. But it's a sample there that you would need to get that form and then submit that with your bid as well if you want to be considered as a local business enterprise. And I'm getting a little ahead because I think, and Aisha and you and Melissa can correct me on this, I believe if you're going to be an LBE, a local business enterprise, or certified as such, you have to submit that documentation prior to bid opening. So that's there.
Correct, Gary.
Thank you, ma'am. That's there for information just to let you know what would need to be submitted. Also, the affirmative action utilization plan, the organizational conflict of interest statement also has to be signed and submitted, and a copy of your South Carolina General Contractor's License has to be submitted with your bid. Again, it says here the next bullet that acceptance of bids only from bidders determined to be compliant by OBO. That was that previous step I mentioned when you submit your CSP committal letter. We will send that to OBO, and OBO will let us know who is compliant and who is not compliant. And we will then notify the bidders of the offers. At that point, you've been deemed compliant, please submit a bid, or you've been deemed non-compliant. And then procurement contracts will then forward the relevant documentation to OBO for final compliance review. That is what I was talking about earlier with your business information records form. If you say contractor BRY is a CDBE and they're going to be performing 12% of the work, and then subcontractor DEF is a DBE and they're going to be performing 5% of the work for a total of 17%. We would then want OBO to verify that entity you indicated was a CDBE, was a CDBE and or a DBE, and the same for the entity that you indicated was a DBE. We want to make sure that they were a DBE as you had indicated. All right, thank you. Next slide, please. And then step 5 and 6. Step 5 is when procurement, once the bids are received, procurement and contracts will then review the bids that were submitted by compliant bidders for responsiveness and responsibility. We'll make that determination that those bidders are responsive and responsible. And then the next step is we'll get a compliance memo from Office of Business Opportunities and recommendation from our end user or project manager to move forward with the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. And then we'll make the process of the steps to move forward with getting the item on the council's agenda for their approval. And then once they approve it, we'll then get the contracts executed and then have a pre-construction meeting. And at that point, we'll determine when the notice to proceed will be. And then we'll get that issued, and that will send the project on its merry way, hopefully to be completed very successfully. And I'll, again, we've gone over a lot. If you've got any questions, I'll be happy to answer any. I think that's it for my slides. If you can check them. Yep, that's the last one.
Does anyone have any questions for Gary before we move on?
We don't have any questions in the chat right now, Aisha.
Okay, well, feel free. We have Gary for the rest of our presentation, so he'll be here if you have any questions about that process. And then we'll be right back with procurement in just a moment to go over eBid. So we'll move forward with the updates. Regarding complaints, any complaint received by the city concerning the CDBE policy, we'll make sure we investigate those and report them to the city manager and to city council as deemed necessary. Also, additional rules and regulations, the city may, with the approval of the city manager, promulgate additional rules and regulations not inconsistent with this policy. The city manager reserves the right to review or remove programmatic provisions should it be found to be in the best interest of the city. And we typically add this to all programs. It really is our intent with this program to encourage the utilization of minority, women, veteran-owned businesses. So we want to make sure that any programmatic provisions are in line with that mission. And if we need to make changes, we want to be able to make those. And in the event any of the policies found to be invalid or unenforceable, that particular provision will be taken out, not the entire policy. And this is typical language for programs. Regarding program compliance, I want to mention that our office monitors pay applications throughout the entire contract to ensure that the CDBE subcontractor goal is maintained for the duration of the contract. This is very important because we do not want a prime contractor to say they're going to utilize the CDBE at the front end and be awarded a contract and then not follow through with that requirement. So as pay applications come in, our staff reviews those to see how they are moving towards making sure that they meet that goal. And one of the big things is if there's a change order or a contract amendment, we want to make sure that that goal that has been established is still met throughout the duration of that project. So we look at that with all pay applications that are submitted to our office. And we'll maintain those records, and we provide reports to the city manager and city council so that they can monitor the success of the program, and if changes need to be made, how are we as far as meeting the goals that have been established, and if any changes need to be made. So those reports are very important, and I just want to ensure all of our participants that is information that we review on a regular basis. Regarding CDBE subcontractor substitution, we recognize that from the time a bid is submitted and awarded and the project starts and when the actual work is going to be done, there's a bit of time between that time period, and sometimes substitutions are necessary. So when that happens, we want to ensure that the CDBE goal is still met, and that if they do not meet that CDBE goal with a substitution, then that could potentially constitute a material breach of contract. So we've inserted this information regarding damages for not doing what the contractor said that they were supposed to do. So every effort should be made to replace a CDBE with another CDBE, and we can make sure that we make sure that that is adhered to throughout the project. That's very important to us. This is just a list of all of our forms in the application. They're all listed here, and then you can see them right here. So the first one is our letter of CDBE commitment. And it really is kind of self-explanatory in here. You're going to say you meet that, we will put the goal amounts, or you will put the goal amount as the prime contractor, will put the goal amounts in here and tell us if you're going to meet or exceed, if you're going to meet at least 50%, or if you're going to be below 50%. And if you check that C, then that's going to be, you're going to be required to submit your GFE documentation to show that you did do what you're supposed to do as far as meeting the good faith efforts. And then we're also going to look to make sure that you took the tiered approach. So our focus, of course, is that you utilize CDBE, but while we recognize that sometimes you may have to expand out beyond that CDBE, that's why we have this tiered approach, and this is where you would indicate it on this one-page form. And then you're just making sure that the CDBE or DBE is self-performing a minimum of 50%. And that's just to say we want to make sure that the CDBE or DBE is actually performing the work that you're saying that they are going to perform. It's very important that our CDBEs or DBEs are not utilized as a pass-through. We want to make sure that they are performing the work as indicated at the beginning of the project. And then that has to be signed and notarized and submitted. The next I have is Appendix H, is the GFE CDBE DBE participation log, as we mentioned. That's submitted if you are below that 50%. It is not required if you meet or exceed the goal. And it just lists the name of the business, the scope of services, the materials, and the percentage that you expect for that particular business to undertake. Appendix C is the good faith efforts checklist, and it goes through each item. This is just the first page on here. It can be found on our website. I'm sure the link has been put in the chat several times by now, but you can find those on our website, and we make sure whenever we update that form, we update it on our website. And just to plug, OBO and the City of Columbia in general, we all have the launch of our new website. It looks great. It's very user-friendly, so I encourage anyone who hasn't been on the City of Columbia website to check it out and see what information is available on there. Appendix D is the GFE solicitation log sheet, and it includes when the businesses were contacted, who did you speak with, what type of certification they have. And this is really just a way for you to document that you did everything possible to reach out to these CDBEs or DBE contractors in. And this is the method that we use to ensure that you've done that. Again, you only have to submit this if you're below the 50% of the specified goal. Next is Appendix G. It's the GFE follow-up communication. So we want to make sure that you followed up with the CDBEs that you reached out to initially, and then what was the result of the conversation. Not to say that anyone on this call would do this, but we want to make sure that you didn't list a DBE or a CDBE and say that they just weren't interested when they actually were. So this is documentation that you followed up with them. And what did they say that they were going to submit a bid? Did they say that they have too much work, which is possible? Everyone's really busy right now, but this is where you would document that conversation. We've included the capital improvement project list for 21-22. As you can see on the far right, we have the possible program. So at the front end, city staff determines what type of program may be a good fit for these projects. And depending on the details, it may be designated as a CDBE or a mentor protege program. So for anyone interested in being a mentor or a protege, I encourage you to contact our office, and we'd be happy to discuss that program with you and if you would be a good fit to be a mentor or a protege. So this is just our water draft, the draft of the CIP for water projects. We have wastewater projects in here as well. And these are just an estimate. So depending on the year, depending on the budget, some of these projects might roll over into the next fiscal year. There's a variety of factors, but this is kind of just an estimate of the projects that we see within this fiscal year. And this is specific to wastewater. So that is all for the CDBE program. And if anyone has any questions about any of the documents, the forms, I'd be happy to answer those questions right now.
Thank you, Aisha. And as Kalina's looking at the questions to see if anyone has any, I just want to reiterate the fact of the good faith effort. So if you are at or above 50%, you are still required to do good faith efforts, correct? However, you do not have to submit those during the CSP process. If you are below 50%, you do have to do your good faith effort, and you must submit the good faith effort documentation, which includes your participation log during the CSP phase of the bid. Thank you.
So, Kalina, do we have any questions yet before we get into how to register an eBid?
No questions right now, but I have provided the links to the good faith efforts documentation and the letter of commitment documentation. They're all in the chat, and I'm also adding another link for everyone if they want to look at the good faith efforts requirements, guidelines, and the resolution utilization policy. And we also have a listing of who are current CDBEs and DBEs that we have that listing, and that is updated weekly, along with the CDBE application form. All that information will be found on the following link, but you can also contact our office if you have any additional questions.
Thank you, Kalina. Anything else? Okay. If you think of anything, you can please, again, put that in the chat, and we will go to Jewel with our procurement and contracts department.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jewel. I'm with the City of Columbia's Department of Procurement and Contracts. I'm the junior buyer here. So we get questions all the time about how do you become registered to do business with the city. I think they have spoken a little bit before kind of about the eBid system. I think Gary mentioned it a couple of times. So in order to see the bid opportunities that we have available and be able to actually bid on those projects, you will need to become a registered user of our eBid system. So in an effort to cut down on office supplies and things like that, we have an automated system now. It's electronic. It's a process via the internet. And this is where we utilize our vendor management. We'll provide a link to this, I guess, in the chat. So basically, once you access our site, you will see a screen like this, and either you will log in or you will register as a new vendor, which is a little plus sign over there with a little person. And if you'll go to the next slide. So here's a link to the website. And again, we'll put that in the chat for you guys. And like I said, you would click on supplier registration. And here's where you would enter your company name, your phone number, all the pertinent information regarding your business. And then you would review and accept the city's terms and conditions by putting a little check mark in the box, and then you click next. You will complete all the fields in order to proceed and carry on. You have to, these things are required. Here's where you would also put, create your username and password. But again, like I said, all the fields that are marked with an asterisk is required information, and this is the information that we are going to need in order to approve your registration. Next slide. Okay, so once you get that information plugged in, you are going to receive a verification email. And this is going to test to make sure that the email address that you put for your registration is an active email address. It is very important to make sure that you enter that information correctly, because if you don't receive the verification email, then something went wrong. Once you receive that email, you're going to follow the instructions on that email to continue with your registration process. So again, like I said, it's very important to enter the correct email address. Next slide. All right. So once you confirm once we get your email address confirmed, you're going to continue with the registration process. Now, every vendor is going to be required to put in some commodities. These are things that subclasses and classes of types of work that you do. What can you do as far as in your business? We have tons of different commodities that you can choose. It is very important when you register for your account that you pick the correct codes. We are going to send you email notices on bid opportunities that arise, and in order to keep you from getting every single bid opportunity that we put out there, we're asking what type of business can you provide to us, and those are the types of emails that you're going to get as far as when we have a solicitation going out for that type of work. So if you are a caterer, I probably would not choose either a transportation or a construction commodity, because you are going to get email saying that there's a solicitation coming up for a construction project or some type of transportation project. So it's very important that you choose the correct commodity, because those are the email notices that you will receive from us. Next slide. So once you get all that done, you submit it. Our confirmation email will be forwarded to your email address, alerting you that you are fully registered. There is a little bit of a process behind those scenes before you get that email, and that is where one of our team members here in Procurement and Contracts, normally it's me, but that's where one of our team members and coworkers will go in and actually approve your registration. We're going to go in, we're going to look, we're going to make sure that you supplied us with a phone number, that you supplied us with a good email address, that you included your tax ID number. A lot of vendors will get rejected and it's sent back to them requesting more information because they forgot to put their tax ID information in there. So it's very important to put that in there. So again, this is where you would go. This is the email address that you can go on to either register or to log in and see different items. You'll enter your username and password that you created during the time of your registration. And then you would select the bid opportunity that you're interested in and follow the prompts through the submittal process. We've made it very easy for you guys. It's very user-friendly to go in there to submit your bids. If you ever have any questions, you guys can always reach out to any of us, and we'll be more than happy to help you if you are having any type of issues logging in, getting passwords reset, any of that type of information. We'll be glad to help you with that. Again, this is some contact information from different team members here in our office here in Procurement and Contracts. And again, we'll be more than happy to walk you guys through any of the registration process if you have any questions or any issues with that. I believe that's the end of my presentation. So if you guys have any questions, like I said, feel free to reach out to any of us. We'll be happy to help you guys out.
Thank you, Jewel. Do we have any questions for procurement in general or specific to EBID?
No questions in the chat right now.
Well, I just want to reiterate, it's very, very important that everyone on the call register for EBID. We utilize that for a lot of different purposes. So it's important that you go ahead and get registered. It does not take too much time. And it's very important that you're aware of the opportunities. So you can't respond if you don't know what's going on. So we ask that you please register for that. That's helpful for our office as well if we have you in the system already. So everyone that registered, they will receive an email with the following: a recording of the presentation, a copy of the presentation, the survey, also attach our CDBE brochure as well. So if you have any additional questions, you'll have that information. Again, you can always contact our office and we'll be happy to set up a Zoom call or a conference call to go over the different requirements. I do know we have Sandra Middleton as well as Shannon Lizeski. I don't know if either of you want to speak really quick before we close. We work very closely with our procurement department to make sure that this information flowed well for you.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Aisha. Yes, I am Sandra Middleton. I'm the purchasing agent here for the City of Columbia. If you all have any questions at all for our department, please do not hesitate to give us a call. Thank you, OBO, for such a great presentation today. Shannon?
I would just reiterate the same sentiments. Thank you for the opportunity to partner with you all and provide this very valuable type of training.
Thank you, Shannon. And then also, I know I saw Dana, Andrea, and John from Columbia Water. Really quickly, most of our projects that we work with Columbia Water very closely, so I just wanted to give them an opportunity to speak if they wanted to say anything.
This is John Riggs. I'm looking forward to working with everybody. Hope we get some new vendors in here, and we've got a bunch of projects about to roll out. So we're excited about hitting the ground running with these new guidelines and positive opportunities. Thank you.
John. All right. Okay. Melissa, do you have anything before we close?
No, I just want to reiterate the part of the partnership that we have with procurement. We do, and with Columbia Water. So I just want to reiterate the fact that we do work collectively within these different departments, and we certainly look forward not only to having more vendors, more diverse vendors, but making sure that you're part of our CDBE program. Again, thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Dana. Thank you, Joey. Thank you, John, for being a part of the presentation this morning. And thank you, Aisha. Great job. And Kalina. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. Again, you'll receive that information today. I also wanted to thank our public relations staff. I'm sure he's not going to speak, but they do such a great job of recording all of our webinars, and we could not provide this information if it wasn't for them. So thank you so much to Leisha and her team. At that, everyone, please stay safe. Please let us know if you have any questions. We are here as a resource for you, and we want to assist you however we can. So everyone have a great rest of your day. Bye.